the deep state is still covering up where COVID came from, and Fauci helped them do it. Whatever you do, don't say lab leak.
Is Dr. Anthony Fauci going to actually be held to consequences after the 5 years that have passed? Apparently, a 5-year federal statute of limitations, they say, has run out for this alleged crime that he committed. I'm saying alleged because he hasn't been charged with anything yet. But is he finally going to be held accountable for the crimes that he committed? With the crime in question would be lying to Congress under oath in 2021 about the National Institutes of Health funding for risky viral research in Wuhan. You remember President Obama said, no more gain-of-function research, and yet Anthony Fauci kept doing it anyway. And therefore, that could have led to what eventually was, apparently, allegedly, a lab leak. A CIA whistleblower is laying it all down, and we are all here to analyze exactly what he's trying to tell us. Okay, everybody, let's take a look at this clip from Jesse Waters on Fox News. He covers a congressional hearing with a CIA whistleblower who testified that the lab leak was covered up, that Fauci's role was intentional in that cover up. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at exactly what he is talking about.
Fox News alert, Anthony Fauci's in big trouble. The little man in a lab coat got a lot wrong and never fessed up to any of it. 2 weeks to slow the spread, wear a mask, and whatever you do, don't say lab leak. Well, today, a CIA whistleblower told the Senate the deep state is still covering up where COVID came from, and Fauci helped them do it.
Intelligence community leaders and senior analysts downplayed the possibility that the COVID pandemic originated as a result of a lab incident. Dr. Fauci's role in the cover-up was intentional.
But the cover-up didn't start in 2020. It started in 2015 when Fauci had his own scientists change the rules so he could keep funding gain-of-function research, the kind that was happening in Wuhan. Fast forward 4 years, October 2019, the CDC, Johnson & Johnson, and the former number 2 at the CIA teamed up with Bill Gates' foundation and the World Economic Forum to war game a fake coronavirus pandemic.
Now, this is something that those of us that have been paying attention, there's a lot of us that have already been made aware of this war game that happened, that Bill Gates was involved in, and that they were basically putting together a scenario so that they could test and see how society would respond to something like a virus that, promulgates society and government control, and how well all of those things would work together. And they war gamed it to see exactly maybe how many people they thought would comply, who wouldn't comply, all of the contingencies that you would have to consider when you're trying to control an entire population of the United States. Say if you were gonna want to maybe throw a monkey wrench in an election, something like that. So that is why they did it. I mean, I think ultimately they did it because they wanted to know essentially how well they would be able to have control over an entire population as large as the population of the United States, which is arguably the most powerful country in the world. You control America, you would control the world. That's why the president of the United States is effectively, whoever that guy is that's sitting in that seat, is effectively the most powerful man in the world. So let's hear what they have to say.
This was a coronavirus pandemic tabletop exercise, curiously similar to the events that played out during the COVID-19 pandemic. And it was attended by Dr. Fauci and individuals with IC ties like former DNI Avril Haines.
Here's what their pretend pandemic looked like. See if this jogs your memory.
CAPS is a serious respiratory disease. More than half of the recognized cases have required hospital care, creating a huge strain on healthcare systems. The fatality rate is about 10%. Even so, some people only exhibit mild flu-like symptoms, not requiring treatment in a hospital. Alarmingly, those people are able to walk around and spread the virus, not realizing they are doing so.
Which is essentially what we're doing when we all have a cold. When we all have some kind of upper respiratory virus, we're walking around and we're essentially spreading our germs. But that's never stopped people before. We all get colds. We all are exposed to cold. There's a remedy for that. It's called washing your hands before you touch your face. It's a rule in my house. Don't touch your face unless you wash your hands. Problem solved.
Travelers have been arriving at their destinations symptom-free, but within a matter of hours, becoming ill.
Weird coincidence, right? 2 months later, December 2019, China reports its first COVID case. Fauci immediately goes on TV and says it did not come from a lab.
Could you address these suggestions or concerns that this virus was somehow man-made, possibly came out of a laboratory in China?
He turns right around and he looks at Fauci because that's what the president does. He delegates because he's a businessman. It's what he does. And I heard an interview with who I now refer to as Scarf Lady. And she admitted in her recent autobiography that she and Dr. Fauci cornered the president essentially alone in the Oval Office in order to completely control his attention and essentially convince him to shut the entire country down. I remember him sitting in the Rose Garden and saying, we're going to be open by Easter. And this was, I think, in early April. It was 2 weeks. We're going to be open by Easter. And I remember feeling this, oh, good. He's going to go with his gut. He knows how things need to go, and he's going to go with his gut, and he's going to open things back up. And that is not what happened, as we all know, because of Dr. Fauci and Scarf Lady.
Took to get to the point where it is now is totally consistent with a jump of a species from an animal to a human.
What Fauci didn't mention, 2 months earlier, he'd already huddled up with the top virologist, and privately, they were all worried about a lab leak.
Dr. Fauci convened the now infamous February 1st, 2020 call. Some scientists on that call privately raised serious concerns about a laboratory origin. Yet, ironically, those same scientists later co-authored the proximal origin paper, which publicly dismissed the lab leak.
You know what's beautiful about Rand Paul controlling all of this process is that he is himself a physician. He's a doctor. So you can't pull anything over on him. He already knows and understands when Anthony Fauci is lying to his face, that he's lying to his face. So that's the beautiful part about Rand Paul sort of leading the charge on this is, he's not just some schlep who ran for Congress and doesn't understand the science. He's a doctor. He understands the science.
Hypothesis. One author received a $9 million grant from Dr. Fauci's own agency after he changed his opinion from lab leak on the private phone call to natural origin in public.
Fast forward to August 2021, the CIA is 5 days away from calling it a lab leak. Then out of nowhere, the story changes.
As of August 12th, the CIA was considering calling this a lab leak, August 12th of 2021. And then that changed on August 17th of 2021. Right. And unfortunately, because the CIA would not provide us documentation that we asked for, we have no idea why that changed. It was significantly influenced by Anthony Fauci's injecting himself into the IC.
So Fauci cooked the intelligence to cover up how 1 million Americans died because he had his fingerprints all over that leaky lab. Then the Fauchmeister dropped the hammer on the truth tellers.
Following the CIA's COVID relook that culminated in 2023, the CIA retaliated against analysts supporting the lab leak hypothesis. CIA managers retaliated against them for their refusal to agree with management's middle-of-the-night anonymous rewrite of the analysis, which changed the assessment to a non-call judgment.
Now, remember when Fauci swore under oath that he never, ever, ever, ever funded gain-of-function?
The NIH has not ever and does not now fund gain-of-function research in the Wuhan Institute.
Turns out he just changed the definition of gain-of-function and kept writing the checks.
several of the BSEG scientists helped Dr. Fauci rewrite definitions of gain of function in 2015.
That's why when Rand Paul was questioning him about what gain of function is, he was sitting there telling him, no, that's not gain of function. No, that's not gain of function. It's because he had already had people change the definition of what gain of function is. So technically he's not lying, right? Technically he's not lying, because gain of function didn't mean the same thing as it did when he engaged in this conspiracy. He must be like part lawyer or something, because that's how lawyers think.
Research.
So the very scientists that were commissioned to investigate COVID were, in some cases, the very scientists who were complicit in the origins of the gain of function experiments that may well have created COVID.
So the guy who may have funded the pandemic gets to run the investigation into the pandemic?
Fox, henhouse.
You'd think the other party might want to ask some questions too, right?
Yeah.
But Democrats couldn't find the room.
Senator Ruben Gallego, Democrat from Arizona, actually walked by us about 15 minutes ago. He saw the media cameras here, and we couldn't tell if he was joking or trolling or not, but he said, hey, what's going on here? And his staffer said,
Wow.
I don't know, and they walked past us. So he's on that committee. He's not in the room.
Earlier this year, the CIA finally admitted it. COVID most likely came from the Wuhan lab. Only took them 5 years. But there's just one catch. The CIA says they have low confidence in their own answer. So they're pretty sure COVID came from a lab. They're just not sure.
Sure.
Rand Paul says the rest of the agencies are still slow walking documents, while the same people who got it wrong are telling you to get over it. The good news, Fauci isn't out of the woods yet. AutoPen gave him a pardon, but state prosecutors can still go after him. And the feds are looking into whether to open a criminal case of their own. And they should. 1 million Americans are dead from a virus cooked up in a lab, and someone's got to answer for it.
So there you have it. I did a little bit of research online about whether or not, like, what charges possibly he could be facing if they indeed cannot get these lying to Congress charges to stick due to the statute of limitations. Possible or new alternative charges would be pursuing other contested testimony or conduct spanning closer to the present day, such as a charge for allegedly lying to Congress in 2024 regarding his use of personal email for government business. The validity of the pardon is even in question. Former President Joe Biden issued the preemptive blanket pardon that we all heard about for Fauci just before he left office, but congressional critics like Nancy Mace, not always a huge fan, but on this point, I agree, and Senator Rand Paul have challenged the validity of it since it was allegedly issued using an auto pen. We've had a lot of conversations about the use of the auto pen, and especially in light of what we now know about as far as what we saw, the declining mental agility, mental state of Joe Biden as his term progressed. The legitimacy of this pardon, it's never been tested in court. So that may be an avenue that they might want to pursue. Then there, of course, are always state level actions because President Biden's pardon only applies to federal offenses. There are several states' attorneys general and lawmakers that have argued that legal action could still be pursued at the state level, which I think is what Jesse Waters was just referring to. So anyway, I just wanted to sort of go over that. This may still be something this is, like, in my opinion, like Nuremberg level crimes against humanity. I think we all feel that way. And we all need to feel like we all know that there needs to be accountability. There need to be consequences because we cannot have government officials that are unelected bureaucrats that are inflicting this kind of damage on our American constituents, on our citizens, and, basically stripping us of all of our rights and our freedoms. And nobody even elected that guy. So, but I want to wrap up with a couple of scriptures that really speak to basically bringing truth to light and revealing truth. So some key verses that I looked up, John 8:32, you will know the truth and the truth will set you free. Matthew 10:26, nothing is covered that will not be revealed. and John 16:13, which speaks to the spirit of truth guiding believers in all truth. So John 16:13 is, but when the spirit of truth comes, he will guide you into all truth. And Luke 12:2, nothing is covered up that will not be revealed, or hidden that will not be known. So, we know that truth will always be revealed, that God will always make sure, even if we don't see the justice on this side of glory, we know that he sees it and he is going to take it into. So if nothing else, we have that as a comfort. Thanks so much for joining me today. Like and subscribe, Please like and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. I'm a new channel, so the growth is something that I would really love to have. I love you. Thank you so much for sticking around with me today, and let's just keep praying, everybody. Thanks so much. This is Kelly Jackson with Still Not Canceled, where we question everything, especially the narrative. Bye-bye.